Good afternoon, everyone, and namaste. I'm Elizabeth Davenport, Dean of Rockefeller Chapel, and it's my great joy to welcome you all this afternoon to this anniversary celebration of Swami Vivekananda's life and legacy. We remember Swami Vivekananda not only on this special anniversary of his birth, but also on the 120th anniversary of his historic and revelatory visit to Chicago for the Great Parliament of Religions in 1893, a visit during which he also spoke to great acclaim here on this campus in the then newly completed Cobb Hall. I offer the greetings of the university community to you all, to the Swamis, Swami Ishatmananda, Swami Varadananda, Swami Shantarupananda, and all of your colleagues from near and far who are here. Welcome to all who are representing the Indian community in Chicago, and to those who are here on behalf of the Indian Ministry of Culture, and to those who are here representing the Council for a Parliament of the World's Religions today. Special thanks to my own colleagues who are here, especially Dean Martha Roth, Dean of the Humanities at the University of Chicago, and Professors Gary Tubb and Roshana Majumdar, and Associate Director Irving Bruckner of the Department of South Asian Languages and Civilizations, and their colleagues also. And special thanks to Sumit Ray, who has been the liaison between the community and the university for this event, and without whom we would not be here holding this glorious celebration. This chapel in which you find yourself today, this magnificent building, is the spiritual and ceremonial center of the University of Chicago, and also a major center for the performing arts. It was built, as you see, with grandeur of scale, speaking to the nobility of our shared human quest for meaning and great capacity for awe. We house in this building the university's Spiritual Life Office, which works with students and members of the wider community of all the world's traditions. We hope bringing into play something of Swami Vivekananda's vision of all traditions, learning to live in harmony with one another and not in competition. Directing that office is Jigna Shah, known to many of you. Jigna also serves as Assistant Dean of Rockefeller Chapel. She is the first person outside of the Christian tradition ever to hold a title as one of the deans of this chapel. And it was my great joy to appoint her 2 years ago as my closest colleague. We benefit greatly from her wisdom, as do our students of all traditions and faiths. It's my honor to introduce her now and to ask her to lead us into our program this afternoon. Assistant Dean Jigna Shah.
Namaste. Namaste. On behalf of Spiritual Life at University of Chicago, I welcome you all to today's celebration marking the 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, which we are proud to host with Southern Asian Studies and the Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago. At this time, I'd like to invite Swami Shantarupananda for the opening ceremony by lighting 150 candles and children from the Chinmay Mission who will be chanting Shanti mantras.
मास्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव। ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवद्वर्यमा शन्नो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः। नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि। तन्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ द्यौ शान्तिः अन्तरिक्ष शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्तिः आपः शान्तिः ओषधय शान्तिः वनस्पतय शान्तिः विश्वे देव शान्तिः ब्रह्म शान्तिः सर्वं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः समा शान्तिरेव। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं शोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
the 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, every school child in India knows the story of how Swami Vivekananda came to Chicago back in 1893 and participated in the Parliament of Religions. The Parliament of Religions was organized as part of the Columbian Exposition, the wonderful World's Fair, which was held right here, right along Midway Plaisance, and the Parliament itself was held at the Art Institute of Chicago, right downtown. And that Parliament and Swami Vivekananda's speech there were one of the great moments in the history of religion. That Parliament itself was the very first interfaith gathering in human history. For the very first time, all the religions gathered together and began to seek harmony among themselves, began to seek friendship rather than enmity. And the whole interfaith movement began at that Parliament back in 1893. And also at that Parliament, Swami Vivekananda introduced Hinduism into the United States. He was the very first monk ever to come from India and to speak on Hinduism here. And his speech opened up a bridge between the East and the West that has continued up until this day. Before he came to Chicago, he spent many years wandering around India from one end to the other and had seen all the tremendous poverty and suffering that was there. And then he came to Chicago and saw this wonderful World's Fair, which revealed all the latest discoveries in science and technology. And he said that in India, we have a wonderful gem of our spiritual heritage, our spiritual knowledge, but it's laying in the dirt. Whereas in the West, he found they have a wonderful case, but nothing inside. And so he sought to bring East and West together, to bring the spiritual knowledge of the East to the West, and also the science and technology and development of the West to bring to India. Because he said you cannot teach religion to someone with an empty stomach. You can't just ignore the physical life in order to focus on the spiritual. You have to have both, just as a bird needs two wings to fly. So this Parliament and Swami Vivekananda's speech there were a tremendous event which changed the world, which changed the way people think, and we're continuing to kind of reap the benefit of that today. And thank you.
We'd like to share with you two songs of praise and peace. And if you have the words near you, feel free to join us. And as we sing the second song, the peace song, if you wish, you're welcome. We invite you to hold hands.
I am very grateful to the organizers for inviting me to present on this very important theme of Swami Vivekananda and the empowerment of women. And please bear with my Bengali pronunciation of Swami Vivekananda's name. Swamiji's achievements in this arena were remarkable and distinct when compared to many of his contemporaries. He voiced his strong support for the Age of Consent Bill that was passed around 1891. This was a law that prohibited consummation of marriages with brides who were less than 12 years of age. This may not seem like much to us today, but we have to remember that this was a time when child marriage was widespread in India. After a horrific incident when a young girl named Phulmoni died as a result of her husband, Hori Maiti, trying to forcibly establish marital relations with her, contemporary Indian society was roiled in a huge controversy about child marriage. Swami Vivekananda was part of a small but vocal group that spoke out firmly against the marriage of little girls. For him, it was critical that Indian girls be given the wherewithal to make the right choices for themselves. And in this, he saw no better alternative than education. Instead of speaking in general terms, however, in the time that has been allotted to me, I would like to take two specific instances from Swami Vivekananda's illustrious career to address this issue of women, or the women's question. In doing this, I want to speak about two women. The first of these is probably familiar to many of you, Margaret Noble, better known to us as Sister Nivedita. Born to Irish Catholic parents in 1867, she began her career as a teacher at 18 and eventually established her own school, the Ruskin School, in 1895 at Wimbledon in London. In addition to her commitment to both children's and adult education, Margaret Noble was also an avid pamphleteer. During her years in London, she met with Prince Kropotkin, the famous revolutionary in exile, whom she heard speak at the Free Ireland Circle. She was a member of the Sesame Club that was frequented by men like Bernard Shaw, T.H. Huxley, and many others. It was also during these years that she first met Swami Vivekananda, who was visiting London and had been invited to speak at the house of one Lady Isabel Margison. Swami Vivekananda's reputation as an orator and thinker was already established by this time. To Margaret, however, it was not enough to bow down simply to Swamiji's charisma. In meetings that followed from their first encounter, she asked him many skeptical questions that gradually transformed her moral and spiritual persona. For example, she was struck by his remarks that self-realization was more important than faith. Gradually, she began to acknowledge him as a spiritual teacher and began to address him as master. But it was not the unthinking devotion of a pupil, but a critical acceptance of a subject who was herself a thoughtful, political, feisty, and highly intelligent woman. It was almost as if Vivekananda gave Margaret the voice she had been searching for. As she wrote in a letter in 1904, suppose he had not come to London that time. Life would have been like a headless dream, for I always knew I was waiting for something. Always I had this burning voice within, but nothing to utter. How often I have sat down, pen in hand, but there was no speech. And now there is no end to it. Theirs was a remarkable relationship. Vivekananda believed in ideals of sovereignty. His extensive travels across India had filled him with the urge to study and know more about his motherland. Equally, during his travels in England, France, and America, he was struck by the qualities he saw in Western peoples. As he put it, they have found the secret of obedience without servility and combined the greatest possible freedom with respect for law. It was from this general admiration for the West, and having keenly observed Margaret for some time, that he said to her one day, "I have been making plans for educating the women of my country. I think you could be of great help to me." Yet he did not push her into this, nor did he follow up on this conversation with any concrete plans. It was almost as if he wished for Margaret to spell out what her own convictions were. She did this after a period of serious thinking for about 2 years, during which they corresponded frequently. In a remarkable letter cited in her biography, Margaret Noble is said to have written to Swamiji, "Tell me frankly and candidly whether I can be of use to India. I want to go. I want India to teach me how to fulfill myself." For the first time, she expressed herself as someone who had much to receive, to learn, not to teach. It was this spirit that made her one of the most remarkable women in the history of modern India. She arrived in Calcutta in January 1898. In his response to her letter about whether or not she should come to India, Vivekananda had responded saying, "The tusks of the elephant come out but never go back. So are the words of a man never retracted. I promise you, I will stand by you unto death." And he did, right from arranging language lessons for her in Bangla to setting her up to stay with 2 other American women, Mrs. MacLeod and Mrs. Bull, who had already arrived at Belur Mott, which incidentally had been purchased with considerable financial help from Henrietta Mueller, and where the Swami was already busy laying down the foundations for the Ramakrishna mission. Swami Vivekananda initiated Margaret Noble to the order of Sri Ramakrishna on the morning of March 25, 1898, and anointed her with her new name, Nibedita, which literally meant the dedicated one. Finally, he introduced her to the Calcutta public at a lecture he organized where Sister Nibedita spoke on the topic, "The Influence of Indian Spiritual Thought in England." It is worth recounting this occasion in some detail from her biography by Lizelle Raymond. When Nibedita reached the somewhat shabby Star Theatre, writes Raymond, crammed with an exclusively male audience, she had no idea how she was going to approach it. She noticed that in every row there were twice as many people as there were numbered seats. The faces were pressed close together, and they were crowned with the most diverse headgear, turbans of every color and caps of various forms. Their sandals on the floor, their legs folded beneath them, all these men were staring at her. There was not a European in the hall. 4 or 5 giant fans were revolving in the ceiling, and the big open windows let in that indefinable hubbub of India, which is made up of guttural cries and creakings, singing voices, shuffling sandals, and the croaking of crows. And the heat was stifling. Nibedita's platform experience kept her perfectly at ease, and she appeared before this alien audience, tall, slender, beautiful, her eyes full of an eagerness which matched the character of her guru. Her presence at once commanded respect. Suddenly, Swami Vivekananda's voice was heard. Sister Nibedita is another gift of England to India. As he said this, Nibedita was reading the questions and all eyes turned to her. Who is this woman? What does she know about all of us? Is she still another missionary? She responded to these questions in her clear speech where she declared, "You have the ingenuity of 6,000 years of conservatism, but yours is a conservatism of a people who have through that long period been able to preserve the greatest spiritual treasures of the world. And it is for this reason that I have come to India to serve her with one burning passion for service. She explained how the spiritual thought of the Vedanta could exercise an influence on England. For apostles like Swami Vivekananda had opened the hearts and minds of ignorant and intolerant people who only knew the India of the missionaries, civil servants, soldiers, and sensation-seeking travelers. Her biographer noted that when she descended the rostrum, a shout went up, "Sister Nivedita, Sister Nivedita." People crowded around her and followed her as far as the door. There she found the Swami, smiling and delighted at her performance. His aim had been achieved. With Nivedita, Swami Vivekananda proved that entry to Indian culture and civilization was not dependent on race, color, caste, creed, or gender.